Hello and welcome. I'm Kay and I like to tell stories. Mostly they will be true stories. In this particular segment, I will be talking about actual assaults that I witnessed in school as I was growing up. I became an adult in the mid-'80s. That gives you a little bit of a time frame there. The first one I wanted to talk about is what I'm calling Lisa's assault. And this was a pretty bad one, but it happened right next to me. So what can you do, right? So sitting on the bus, there were a group of kids, quite a few, in the family, 7 or 8 maybe. They got on last. So I had a bit of contact with one of the daughters. She would sometimes sit with us, my best friend and I. I would scoot over. She would sit down. I would talk to her. She was very funny. She spoke really quickly. I remember that. And I would always be 2 or 3 sentences behind, but very nice girl. So I had no problems with her ever. One day in particular, we're in high school. My best friend that I always sat with was absent, which is very rare, but she was this day. So it was just me sitting there. And when Lisa got on the bus, she sat down with me and we were talking like normal. And our rule was in the bus, you could have sodas or you could have candy, but the wrappers, empty containers of any kind, had to be passed up and put into the trash can. Could not put them anywhere else. So somebody finished a drink soda before aluminum cans, if I remember correctly. Yeah. They passed it to her. She passed it to the guy in the front, who I'll just call G, our first letter of his name. She passed it to G. G took his hand and shoved it back, and then he wouldn't take it. So she stuck with the cans. She just went ahead and set it there for him to take. He picked up the can, turned around, and smashed her in the face above the nose with the can. That is what he did. I was shocked, of course. Did not expect that. Normally, you didn't have guys hurting girls. It was just a thing that you didn't do back in that time frame. I said, gee, you, and I went off on this really long sentence of all of the swear words I had ever learned up until my 16-year-old life or so. That's what I said. And I noticed that he just grinned. That's it. He thought it was funny. I looked to see what's going on with Lisa. Her glasses are off. And I looked down. There they are on the floor. These are the harder, well, I think they called them horn-rimmed black glasses. They were in 2 pieces. So this is how hard he hit her in the bridge of her nose and broke her glasses in half. I picked him up and tried to hand him back. Of course, she can't see too much. And I see that her eyes are watering, her nose is running, and I'm like, yeah, that one really got her. She's hurt. And I just kind of try to look after her a little bit. There wasn't much we could do. We were on our way to school at that time. It just kind of was, I didn't know what to do, really. Bus driver still driving. He looked up in the mirror. I remember him realizing, given that look, like he kind of knew something was going on, and he was trying to figure out what it was. Eyes are darting around as to why her head was down and things like that. She kept touching her forehead with her fingers. I could tell she was in a lot of pain. So this was pretty bad. It wasn't just, oh, I tapped you and stop being a baby type thing. We finished the ride. We get to school, and I have to assist her off of the bus because she can't see. Her glasses are broken. She really can't see. She's got a headache now. G got off the bus, and people left. We walked out into the aisle. The bus driver turned around. He looked at her as if something happened. I'm like, yes, G smashed a can in her face. His eyes popped open wide. He stood up, cut in front of us to go off the bus. But then he realized, oh, that's right. I can't leave the bus unattended with kids on it. He said, go in to see the principal right now. And that's where I took her. Usually our principals would be basically somewhere in the front. Not right at the door when you get in, but a little ways off. So let me describe their reaction to this. Walking with Lisa, and they're smiling in a wave, and then their face just dropped. The one, I wanted to call him little, that's kind of mean, smaller one. But he took a step forward towards us to see what was going on. And I'm screaming at that point because G smashed a can in her face. So the other two are still utterly shocked, hadn't reacted just yet, and they're calling G, who is taking a turn to go around the lunchroom. Like, he's just going to go to class. They're calling to him. I remember him turning and just kind of looking at him and just kept walking. Come back here, they said. He thought he was just going to walk on to class after doing that. That's not what happened that day. The smaller principal, I really liked the guy. He was a good guy. He told me, okay, you could take her to the nurse's office, but I want you to go to class because I'm irate. I'm not happy. I'm making a lot of noise. It was probably the best thing. So I took her in, explained what happened to her and what the injury was, and they took care of it. And I went back to class, finished out the day, got on the bus. G was not on the bus. G was never on that bus again. And that's back in the day when bus drivers really did try to have control. That kind of stuff was just intolerable. They would not, no, there was no fighting ever on the bus. You will be off. I appreciated him. I also appreciated the main principal and the two assistants that stood by there every day, waving at us and saying hello. So that's how that story went. Now, the other one that I wanted to talk about today was one where we had portables. Certain hallways led out to it. They weren't frequented too much. This particular hallway that I needed to go through to get out to the portable, I think it was composition, actually. It had a few lockers. So I would walk down every day like normal. This day, I saw a girl, one of the ones that they like to pick on, just a constant victim of their crap. She's walking along, and this big jock, I didn't meet him until I was in 9th grade, so I was a freshman. Coming the opposite way, oh, this ought to be good. So he stepped in front of her, just like they always do, and she stepped to the side. This time he stepped over to block her again on the other side, and then she just stood there, looking utterly bored. Okay, when is this over? Oh, it wasn't over yet, because he began to speak, and when he did, he said these things that girls of our age should never have to hear. So he blocked her and said things like, I'm going to find out which town you live in, and I'm going to stop over there, and I'm going to wait until you're alone. Then I'm going to, yes. So as I'm walking past, I'm hearing these things, and this is atypical. This does not usually happen. And it's getting worse to the point where my feet stop walking and I turn around, step towards him 1 or 2 steps, and I said, don't talk to her like that. Then he turned to me. So he's over top of me. He's very, very tall. I'm short. He's just yelling. Spittle is coming out of his mouth. His eyes are nuts. This guy was not right. As the first time that I had seen insanity, but not true insanity in the sense that this person wasn't like us. Years later, I realized, no, the guy's a psychopath. This is a game for him. I interfered with his little game he had going with this poor other girl. I was there looking at him as he's spittling all over the place, crazy eyes. All of a sudden, there was a hand with some books at his chest, and I'm like, what? I turned my head. I'm just going to call him S, was there. And I remember I had seen S with his brother D at the end of the hall by their lockers. And they came over to make him stop. At first, this psychopath turned and started in on S. Well, he's not going to get away with that because S is also an athlete and he can bring it. He very slowly began to come out of it, smiled. He smiled. And so, hey, what's up, S? And that is what he said. And then he calmed down. It went out of it. And he wanted to know why he was screaming over me. And I'm still stunned. You wouldn't believe what he was saying to her. And by then, the girl who had backed up a little bit from him as he's telling her what all he's going to do to her was stunned, and her face kind of turned a little bit terrified. Something like that. She was working on that, but she didn't run. She didn't do anything. She didn't try to run out either door or run on the other side of me. She stood her ground, but she was just in utter shock. She came over to me with the four of us standing there discussing, well, what are we going to do about this? Because tomorrow we've all got to go to our portables. We kind of need to go through this hall. We were discussing a different way out. It's winter and stuff too. But we decided the best thing was for all of us to walk down the hallway together. I told her, I said, you wait for me. Whichever one of us is here first to make the turn and go through the door, just stop and wait. And that's how we did it. S and his brother, D, would be waiting either just outside the door or just inside. We would all go through that corridor and make it to our portables safely. That is what we had to do. Had we gone to an administrator, I don't know what would have happened, but I do remember seeing a person, I'm not sure who she was, I guess maybe a teacher, possibly a lower admin in the office. From time to time, I would see her or somebody else standing in the hall, not doing anything, or really wasn't anything to do down the hall. There were just some lockers and stuff. Somehow word got through to it. I just remember that I didn't go to the office. I don't know what S and D did. And the girl, maybe she did. She might have told her parents. I'm not sure. I got wind that I think somebody must have said something. Problem was solved. Unfortunately, we had to be the ones to resolve it. I don't know if there was any disciplinary action. Some saying teachers can step up like they used to. Principals and their assistants could certainly step up. Bus drivers can actually give a crap if somebody's getting pounded on their bus. Unlike in the YouTube videos I see where that's exactly happening and the bus driver just keeps on driving. So I don't understand this. This is kind of new. Today you see more and more assaults. So many of them. They're not just saying something. They're getting very physical. And this is a crime. It's a police matter. The schools just kind of tend to say, I'll maybe discipline this guy. Of course, it depends on what he is. If he's just a guy, or if he's a guy who's has declared himself as a girl, or what, as to how much discipline, if any, will happen. That's another story for, I think you know where I'm going with that. But I'm not going to do that story today. And you see, the other thing that's very disturbing that I'm seeing are a bunch of kids piling up on one. Sometimes they kill them. That is just the most unfortunate thing. So this type of thing really needs to be watched. And the law does need to be called because criminal charges need to be pressed against them because older psychopaths, oh yeah, the typical, stereotypical, I should say, Caucasian, middle-aged man, a serial killer. Well, they were young once also. They were in high school once. I'm finding out more and more that they begin their career, if you want to call it that, in their teen years. This is disturbing. Thank you for listening. I'll have some more stories in the future, true stories. I appreciate your time. You want to leave a like, go ahead. Got anything to say? Comments, that's great. You take care till next time. Bye.